What is a real man? There's been some debate about that in recent times, and we're going to talk about that today. I'm Dr. Carol, and thank you for joining me on this episode. I have a real man to talk with me about that question today. Brant Hansen has several times been named Personality of the Year. He's an author, he's got a radio show, and he travels internationally. We'll talk about that just a little bit. But his latest book, The Young Men We Need, God's Purpose for Every Guy and How You Can Live It Out. This may be different than you have previously heard about what godly masculinity is all about. Brant is not one of those sports guys or wilderness guys. I'll let him explain how he came to think about this, talk about it, and write about it. You will really enjoy this conversation. Brant is an author, a radio host, and an advocate for healing children with correctable disabilities through Cure International. If you stay till the end of this conversation, we talk a bit about that. He's written for a number of national organizations. His Brant and Sherry Oddcast, the podcast of his radio show, has been downloaded like 10 million times over that. There's just some really, really exciting things that Brant is into. I just want to get right into this conversation. So here's Brant Hansen. Well, Brant Hansen, I am really honored and pleased that you're on our program today. We're going to have a fun conversation. Your book, Young Men We Need, will be a big part of that. But just thank you for being here.
My pleasure. I'm honored you're honored.
Yeah.
That's great.
This is your second book on this particular topic. You've written a bunch. You wrote The Men We Need, and then now The Young Men We Need. And maybe just to start, just talk about what got you thinking in this vein and why particularly for young men in this one.
Well, so I think you can get this. I'm kind of a nerd. Like, I've got like neurological problems. I can't be a hunter. I can't see straight. I have bad vision. I play the flute, literally. And I grew up being a smart kid who wasn't particularly outdoorsy. But all the Christian stuff about manhood, it was about just kind of the trappings of masculinity, like climb mountains, run with the bulls, I just thought that can't be the depth of it. It can't just be like when they talk about guys at church, it was like, well, let's have steaks, let's do a camp out.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with any of that. Nothing. But I'm like, there's got to be something more profound about masculinity than that stuff. Trucks and hunting and stuff. So I don't consider myself to be like an expert like on man stuff. But I did want to know like what it is really that's beautiful and life-giving about masculinity, and why can't anybody articulate it? So even in church culture, it's like, don't be John Wayne. I get that, but the other tropes are out there, or just don't be toxic. I'm like, well, what's the beautiful thing? What are we supposed to be? Because we need a vision for it. So that's what got me started thinking about this.
Yeah. I love that. There has been a lot of talk in the last few years about toxic masculinity, but the opposite of that, as you've already illustrated, it's not just being nice. I would contend that Jesus was not primarily nice, but what was he as a man? And I love that you're talking about that. One of the claims you make in the Young Men We Need is that if a young man follows the decisions that you outline, and we'll talk about a couple of those, that among the other benefits, he will be more attractive to women. You're clear that that's not the purpose of the book, to make someone attractive to women, but you claim that it really will happen.
Yeah.
And knowing a lot of the people that listen to this show, we're talking about relationships and intimacy a lot. Talk about how this will make a man more attractive to a woman and what that looks like.
Well, whenever I've talked about this with, men and women, the women want to applaud vigorously, because what I'm saying is, and this is not about flexing.
Yes.
This is not about being jacked, having a big truck, being good with guns, all that stuff. There's, again, nothing wrong with that. But this is about making people around you secure, not insecure. So if you're threatening to women, you're betraying your role. You're supposed to be a
Mm,
keeper of the garden. So that's kind of that's the vision I'm laying out, is the job that Adam was originally given,
yes.
which means the people around you, you cultivate them. They get to bloom and flourish because you're there. It could be a species that can't exist out in the wild that would be run over, but in a garden where you're the it gets to bloom and flourish. And I feel like every guy has a sphere of influence, and with that sphere of influence, you're there to provide security for people, not just by saying, and this is key, not just by saying, well, if somebody broke in, I would defend my wife or something.
Yeah.
Well, that's kind of a baseline, but it's like one guy pointed it out. I put it in the book. Um, One guy pointed out, it's like, usually we don't have intruders in my home. The intruder's usually me
Oh, wow.
with
Wow.
my words that are little put downs of my wife. Or you could even pause in conversation with your wife and it's a curse.
Mm,
Like just tone of voice. I have always had to struggle with that, coming across too harshly, for instance, or negatively, or not not using my words to build my wife up, even though I'm her biggest fan. So I've had to change that. But the intruder, the threat is sometimes me. I'm the one bringing insecurity into the home. So to the extent, long answer, but to the extent that you provide security, your wife feels secure because you're there, not put down. You don't have to be jacked. You don't have to have incredible abs. You don't have to be a millionaire many times over. She's going to find you attractive. Or you could be jacked. You could be a great looking guy. You could be great, Navy SEAL stuff.
yeah.
But if you make her feel insecure, you flirt with other women or you're all about your own body, you're like, she's not going to find you very attractive. She may resent your muscles and
Yeah.
resent the stuff you're good at. So that's the thing I keep like saying to guys. This is actually what women are deep down. They're brilliantly intuitive about who we're supposed to be. So
Mhm.
yeah, that's it.
I'm a woman who would clap and applaud that
Yeah.
idea. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
the idea of helping a woman feel secure, and you contend that that is really a big part of what a man is here to do.
Yes.
Married or unmarried, that helping the people close to you feel secure. How does a man do that? You've alluded to your words, but just unpack that one more step.
Well, okay, so that's why I put the 6 decisions in the book. It's like here's a way to embody this. I take a lot of cues from Jesus. I wrote one chapter called the How to Treat Women, the Jesus Masterclass, and how he does that.
Yeah.
But yeah, words are the biggest part of it for us. My willingness to do like when I was writing the book, and this happened again the other night, weirdly enough, there was this big hullabaloo going on outside our window at night. It was like 11 o'clock. And again, I'm not this big fighter guy. I'm a book reading nerdy person. But my wife was unnerved that there were people out wrestling or carrying on out in the street in front of our townhouse. I didn't want to do anything. So I was like, just go back to bed. We'll turn the noisemaker up or whatever. And she was not pleased with that response. She goes downstairs and I realize I'm lying upstairs and she's calling the police or something. She's worried. Well, I'm like, I gotta get it. I gotta do
Mhm.
something. So I get
Mhm.
out of bed. I go downstairs. I put my shoes on. I go outside to confront this group. And as I'm walking out, they're dispersing. I don't even think they saw me when they just decided to disperse. They were just done with whatever. I turn around and come back in. And my wife says, that was hot. And I was like, and I said to her, I said, I don't even think I did anything. I think they were already dispersing. I said, I didn't even do anything. And she said, yeah, but you were willing to.
Mm, yeah.
And I think it's that knowing
Yes.
that she is not on her own.
Yes.
She doesn't have to fend for the family by herself or like she's not left alone. She doesn't have to worry about that she will be left alone.
Hmm.
There's
Yeah.
something deeply resonant. So I try now, underline this constantly, build her up. I'm her biggest fan. She's brilliant. She can function fine in life. I know that and succeed. But like I'm I'm going to make her life secure. I'm not going to introduce insecurity into it. And If I did, I'd be betraying my role.
Yeah. Brant, just the way you told that story makes me smile. And I am sure there are some guys listening who say, well, okay, but I don't feel like doing that. Was this natural for you? Was this something you have had to learn?
Yeah, I've had to learn,
Yeah.
especially the words and the tone and all that. Because you're right about Jesus' niceness.
Yeah.
It's much more bold than that, but he is
Yes.
gentle.
Yes. Yes.
So there's this thing where gentleness being considered like not masculine, it's incredibly masculine to have the ability verbally to reduce someone to ribbons, but you don't do it.
Mm.
Instead, you use it to actually support someone who's vulnerable. Vulnerable people should flourish around me. Even if they don't know they're safer, they
Yes.
are, because I'm
Yes.
here. So
Yeah.
I say that to younger guys, especially because you know this crime rates for young guys. You can see a headline and know who did
Yep.
it.
Yep.
Someone arrested for going 190 on a motorcycle. It's like, it's not going to be an 87-year-old woman. It's not going to be a 52-year-old woman. It's not going to be a 52-year-old guy. It's going to be a 21-year-old, because I'm
Yep.
telling young guys this, you're strong. You have a desire for risk and adventure. Those things are good. You're in your athletic prime, but they're supposed to be in defense of people, not to
Mhm.
threaten people.
Mm.
So when people see a group of young guys walking down the street, they should go, oh, good, we got young guys in the neighborhood.
Mm. That would be a paradigm shift for a
Wouldn't it?
lot of people. And isn't that what the kingdom of God really should be about? I love that.
Well,
One
okay,
of
so
the,
this flips a guy's switch. If you tell them, they get it, but they're
yeah,
not told this. So if
yes.
there's no specific vision for masculinity, what are they supposed to do? I don't even the church doesn't give them doesn't tell them this is your role. But
Yep.
if you do tell them, kids like 8 years old get it. Little boys, if you're like, you're here to defend your little sister, not terrorize her, because that's your job, is to defend her. I
Mm.
shouldn't have to defend her from you. I'm telling you what, they get it.
Yeah.
It is so close to the little boy's heart to be a defender of the weak. They understand it very quickly. Again, that's evidence to me that this keeper of the garden thing is on the right track.
Yeah. I think it is. Back to the six decisions. I want to talk about a couple of them in particular. One you talk about is the decision to forsake the fake and relish the real.
Yeah.
That seemed really big to me. Explain what you mean by that.
Well, I'm talking about fake women. You're really relating to pixels, and you're getting a dopamine hit from pornography, for instance, that's
Yep.
completely based on fakery. And I'm explaining it this way. It's not just a guilt trip for guys. I'm not trying to make people feel guilty. It's a struggle that's just almost universal for people. But
Yeah.
in the end, that pixel collection is not a real woman.
Mhm.
And she's not going to call you out to be the man that you need to be. Like, we get shaped by women. They force us to grow up.
Mm.
They call us out for things. That fake thing that you get the dopamine hit is based on real relationships, but it's not, because it's fake. You wind up being immature instead of mature, because that's not going to call you out at 2 a.m. to go to CVS because she doesn't feel very well. Like,
Yeah.
then what's your reaction? And then, like, but a real woman will challenge you, argue with you, help you grow up. But one of the big problems guys have, it's not just that, it's video games too. And I love video games. I think they're super fun, and that's part of the problem. Uh, but I'm trying to tell young guys, in their minds, they think if I'm playing video games all day and I'm not bothering anybody, what's wrong with it? It's the whole thing. Like, as long as I don't harm anyone, what's the problem? And so
Yeah.
there's millions of guys, this is their life. It's just, I can smoke some pot, I can play some video games, I'm not hurting anybody, so what's the problem? So I'm telling guys, you are hurting people,
Hmm.
because we needed you and you didn't show up.
Yeah.
You're made for an actual purpose, and we miss out on your gifts, what you could have done, the guy you could have been for a woman that was looking for a good husband, for instance, or just a good neighbor, a good friend, or a good
Yeah.
teacher. Like,
Yeah.
we miss out on all of that because you didn't show up.
Yeah.
You did hurt people. So you kind of have to frame it that way. So young guys get a vision like, oh, yeah, I'm supposed to be a keeper of the garden. Okay, that's why this is wrong.
Mm-hmm.
All the other stuff falls into line. That's why making a woman feel insecure if I'm leering at her is not okay, because I'm actually making her less secure. All of this stuff falls into line, but you got to have this vision for it. And that's a big part of it is forsaking the fake and choosing a real.
Yeah. That vision really does seem powerful. You talk about what real love is in the book. And I'm imagining the young men that I have talked to or hear from. And you're right, pixels, porn, it's a big struggle. But how do you talk to a young man about what real love is? I think it's a driving force in us to want that. And
Yeah.
so often, I think, especially for young men, sexual gratification kind of okay. It's like junk food, trying to fill something that, of course, it doesn't satisfy long term, fake versus real and whatever.
Right.
But and another step into the real love bit. How do you think about that?
Well, I explain it like Dallas Willard did, and I'm a big Dallas Willard guy, but he talked about how we'll say, "Oh, I love this chocolate cake."
Yeah.
Do you? You're
Mm.
destroying it. I mean,
Whoa.
right?
Whoa. Yeah.
Right. I love pizza. Oh, do you? Like, so we'll use the term that way, and we could say, "I love this woman." Do you? Or do you just love how she makes you feel,
Yes.
and you're willing to actually devalue her, destroy her, or deconstruct her for your ego?
Yes.
Like she makes you feel good, maybe physically, maybe psychologically. But that's actually not loving her, that's loving you.
Hmm.
You're just saying, I love me. The real love that we're aiming for here is love that wills the best for the other person. So if I'm taking advantage of another woman, like if I'm taking advantage of a woman's body, I'm not married to her. When you put it in these terms, now it becomes obvious why that's not okay. Like you actually don't love her because you're acting out your physical needs
Yep.
without backing it up with your soul.
Yep.
So otherwise you would marry her, you'd be married. So again, just having an actual vision for this is really helpful. Like to know, okay, that's why this isn't good. I'm actually betraying my role to protect this person, this vulnerable person. I'm taking advantage of her. That's not love.
Yeah. Yeah. A question that wasn't on my list of notes, but I think it applies, and I think you'll have a perspective on this, Brant. A lot of what you're talking about is the difference between something for me or offering myself on behalf of someone else. And
Yeah.
yet, if manhood becomes, oh, I just shut down my needs and feelings, that's not the answer. That's a false dichotomy.
Right.
How have you even mentioned you've got neurological issues, and yet you've been married for a long time, either in your own story or for other men who are wrestling with some of this. How do you think about dealing with the needs in your own heart without devolving into just selfishness, getting for me, and become able to offer yourself on behalf of someone else?
Yeah. I'm trying to think how to answer that question. I have had to learn. My wife's helped me with that, I think.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like even speaking about it, like knowing what I'm feeling, for instance.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
here I am, a words guy, right? And
Yeah.
I sometimes I'm not even aware of how I'm feeling about something. Like I might be really deeply disappointed or deeply tired or something, and I'm not thinking about it. So that may not be the answer you're looking for, but she's helped me with that, and she might be better at being reflective about that than I am.
You've just said something that a lot of guys I talk with actually find difficult, and that is to even just be aware of what's going on in you.
Yeah.
And it occurs to me that if you can step up your awareness of what's going on in you, that actually helps you offer yourself in as a keeper of the garden. That just noticing the movements in your own heart, even though it may not feel natural, can actually be part of fulfilling what you're actually talking about, which actually leads me to the next decision that I wanted to talk about for a bit. You say that a man needs to take responsibility for his own spiritual life.
Yeah. Okay.
That's another biggie.
This is actually an encouraging chapter for guys. It's extremely encouraging. It sounds like, buck up, man up. You need to.
Yeah.
That's not what I'm talking about. Your spiritual life is confused in this country because everything in our country is about desires and emotions. We
Yeah.
base everything on it, including in church, I'm afraid, church
Yes.
culture, where we associate spirituality with emotion. And so a lot of guys and some women, if they're not cut out of that emotional cloth, they're more analytical, for instance, like me. You could you hear other people talking about, I could just feel God's presence in this room. I could just feel his warm hands around me. I could feel, well, I don't. And there might be a worship service with lasers and lights and music that modulates up a key, and then the drums drop out and everybody comes back in. It gives people goosebumps.
Yeah.
It may not for me. So what happens is guys think something's wrong with me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't get the Christian thing. I'm not feeling it. Other people feel it. So I must have done something wrong, or I'm such a sinner, or maybe God doesn't exist. So I'm telling guys, I got good news. Spirituality is not emotion.
Yes.
Spirituality, you know what God's looking for from us? Is loyalty.
Mm-hmm.
It's hesed, like this deep, abiding, believing
Yes.
loyalty, where I keep showing up, even as a sinner. I keep talking to him about what we're doing in life together. And I tell guys, like, that's what prayer is. It's you and God talking about what you're doing together in life. He wants to partner with us in life. We get to partner with him. It's astonishing, but it's true. So you live a life that's a praying life where you're talking to him and you're partnering with him. He's partnering with you. You tell him what you need. You thank him for all he has done. You do this. You can do that, whether you're feeling it or not.
Yes.
You don't have to feel it. You may feel nothing for 20, 30 years, but you keep showing loyalty. That's what he's looking for. And he'll bear fruit in your life. Feelings are dependent on so many other things, as you know, like whether I got a nap, whether my team just lost, whether I'm, what I ate. It doesn't, and if I don't feel God around, it doesn't mean God's not around. My feelings do not dictate reality. So, the other thing I tell guys is do what David does or the psalmist does. He catches his own thoughts and emotions and speaks
Yeah.
truth to them, right?
Yep. Yep.
So why are you so downcast, oh my soul? Put your trust in God. He's talking to himself, and he reminds himself to be loyal. And like guys get that. Guys get duty and loyalty, but unfortunately, a lot of church culture is just so emotion based that you feel like you're just missing something, like something's wrong with you. It's not true.
Yeah. Yeah. I appreciate that. I appreciate you mentioning hesed, the Hebrew word for, loyalty or loving kindness. It's translated
Yes.
different ways. And
Yeah.
that's how God sees us. A
Yes.
lot of the references in the Old Testament, God sees us with that loyalty. He is for us. So he's
Yes.
asking us to be for him.
Right.
Um, and you talking about that spirituality isn't emotion. It reminds me something I heard of Mother Teresa that isn't well talked about. She felt like she was in a dark night of the soul for decades. She felt like
Yeah.
God was not close to her. She didn't have feelings. And yet,
Yeah.
look at the impact of her life.
Yes.
All those years, she didn't feel God.
Yeah.
So I love you emphasizing that.
Well,
Yes.
it's so freeing for people. And again, not just guys, but it's
Yes.
so many guys need to hear this because they'll think, oh, my wife or my sister, they're spiritual because they get into worship, they start crying and like, that's not spirituality. I'm sorry. That's
Yeah.
not, there's nothing wrong with them. Like our emotions can be wonderful, but as you know, they shouldn't guide us. And it's
Yes.
there's not much talk about that. He's looking for loyalty though. You're right. Almost all the references are from God to us. There are some that's supposed to be from us to him, but he's so faithful with us and he's looking for loyalty.
Yeah.
And the other thing I tell guys, also incredibly good news. So Adam blows it as a keeper of the garden.
Yep.
He's
Yep.
toxically passive. He's passive and lets the enemy come into the garden. And God comes looking for him and says, Adam, where are you? He's not saying, I don't know where you are on the planet. He's saying, we used to walk together.
Yes.
You're not showing up. And
Yes.
Adam's ashamed of himself, and that's why he's not showing up to walk with God anymore. Well, God clothes him.
Mhm.
And the word in Hebrew for those clothes, I always thought it was like ragtag skins or something. It's the same word that's used for Joseph's coat.
Wow.
It's a priestly garment. It's a robe that's royal priestly garment that he made for Adam and Eve on their way out of Eden.
Yep.
They're clothed like kings and a king and queen, and God goes with them. So I'm telling guys, you may be caught up in stuff. I get it. We are sinners, but you keep showing up anyway. And let God change you. You just keep seeking him, and he will change you from the inside out, where your desires start to change. Like now you're a different sort of person because you're continuing to be loyal to him. Don't slink away in shame.
Mm.
Do not ignore God. Wrestle with him. Like go through this stuff. Be gut level honest with him, but don't walk away. And you can do that.
Yeah. You have used a phrase that it just rings my bells, and I use it more often than I think some people that are close to me may get tired of it. Being changed from the inside out.
Yeah.
This isn't about just a list of behaviors on the outside, but
Yeah.
being changed from the inside out. So thank you, Brant, for going there. There may be some people, listening or watching that say, well, I would love that. And you've given a vision that is, oh, okay, it's appealing, but how do I get from here to there? And a lot of what we've talked about is that journey, but just get real explicit, maybe with any particular suggestions or
Oh,
encouragement.
sure. Oh, yeah. Yeah. So here's the thing. You can't just hit a button and go, oh, now I'm going to not be anxious anymore. I'm not going to have
Yep.
any anger anymore. It's about becoming a different sort of person.
Yep.
Can't hit a button today and go, I can go to a triathlon. I'll go to a triathlon. But I can become a triathlete. I really could. I'd have to start practicing.
Mm-hmm.
So this is about practicing. I tell people, you want to change? Treat traffic as forgiveness practice.
Whoa, that's good.
It's incredibly practical because this is pretty low level in terms of, just it's not even personal. Pretty low leverage. Pray for blessings on the people who are aggravating you.
Mm-hmm.
Pray that they would have peace. That guy who just cut you off, that God would give him peace with his family or with the things he's going through. You will feel your temperature drop. But here's what happens. When you practice that, just like shooting free throws 10,000 times, you practice it so that when you're in the heat of the moment with 2 seconds left and the crowd is there and going crazy, it's just second nature.
Yeah.
So it's become second nature so that you start to react differently to stimuli, to things, to people, where they can insult you and you can return it with blessing. That you can't just automatically do that, but if you practice, you will become a different sort of person. You're cleaning the inside so that you become different. You don't have to put up an act. And this is doable. This is not unrealistic. You practice forgiveness. You can practice Sabbath, for instance, like a day a week where
Yes.
you don't work, you don't be productive so that you teach yourself, I am not my job.
Mm.
You teach yourself, I don't need to be in a hurry all the time.
Yep.
You can do fasting, which teaches you, you know what? My desires don't have to be immediately met all the time. I'm actually pretty content. I can do without, and I can flourish without even. I'm like, there's all of these things that are practices, and they turn you into, through God's grace, they turn you into somebody who's different, and you become more forgiving in the moment. You become more patient. Like it's called discipleship, is what it's called, and Jesus really likes it, so I'm a big fan.
Yeah, I think we should be fans too. That is really good, Brant. That should be encouraging to everyone. Man, woman, young, old. Yeah, you can do this, and that's what Jesus calls all of us to do. Yeah. Just a couple minutes, but before we go, you're into a lot of things. You've written several books, and we've talked about your latest one. But You've got a radio show, you're part of Cure International. Just take a minute or two and just, yeah, what are you into? What should people know and how could they connect with what you're doing?
Okay, if you want to be encouraged, okay, I would love for you to read my books. So I wrote the first book's called Unoffendable. And there's a book called Blessed Are the Misfits about this emotion thing. Unoffendable is about radical forgiveness and anger. And then there's a book about anxiety I just wrote called Life is Hard, God is Good, Let's Dance. And so that's what I'm into. But if you want to skip all that, it's fine. Check out cure.org. It's like the best kept secret on the planet. And I'm not exaggerating. Like they're full on top notch surgical hospitals that heal kids with correctable disabilities by the thousands with excellent orthopedic or plastic or neurosurgeries. They charge people $0 to do it. It's all done overtly in the name of Jesus.
Yeah.
The surgeons pray over the kids. From beginning to end, there's pastoral staff in each hospital. It is all about proclaiming the kingdom of God and healing the sick. And it's the most Jesus-shaped thing I've ever seen in my life. Last year, Cure's hospitals did more than 18,000 surgeries.
Wow.
And people haven't heard about it. And I first went and visited their hospital in Afghanistan. I've now been to a bunch of the hospitals, but I asked them, how come we haven't heard about this? This is incredible. Kids can get up and walk. For 15 years old, they're beggars, and now they can walk.
Wow.
Like, and become believers in the process, like, and their lives are changed. Like, this looks like Jesus to me. How come I haven't heard of it? And they literally said, well, we're kind of busy. We're doctors. And so I was like, well, I'll help get the word out. It's the most beautiful thing. It should be on CNN and Fox and everything else, but it's not. But in case you're wondering, or you get frustrated with Christians this, they that. Okay, but look at this. Look at when people are like, where's your God now? When something horrible happens, I'm like, well, follow me. I'll show you where he is. He's where he's always been.
Wow.
He's with the broken.
Yeah.
And he's using his people to heal, not destroy. And it's just phenomenally encouraging to see what God is doing through his people, but you don't hear about it.
Yeah. And you have been part of supporting and talking about and helping them. We'll include that link among others
Yeah.
in the show notes for this. Thanks, Brant.
Yeah.
And maybe for people who don't know that the Brant and Sherry Oddcast, yeah, what do you do there?
Well, my partner Sherry, she's the producer of the show. She's hilarious and also really theologically astute. And so the combination is very funny. She's a single woman. She's Black. She's from Pittsburgh. I'm a white guy from small town Illinois, and I'm a nerd. And she's hilarious and outgoing, and I'm dry and nerdy. So it's a nice combo. And then we talk about Jesus in very practical terms in the kingdom. And we also are complete goofballs that both have some experience doing comedy. So I think that comes off okay for some people. Other people might think this isn't funny, but some people think it's great. So.
Well, I want to thank you. This has been great. I really enjoyed this conversation, and thank you, Brant. Many blessings to you, your family, the work that you do for the kingdom of God, being Jesus in these different ways. Yeah, this has been great. Blessings to you.
Thank you. Honored to talk to you.
Check the links under this video. We've got the link to Cure International. Definitely something that, like Brant said, it's Jesus stuff. We also have the link to The Young Men We Need, God's Purpose for Every Guy and How You Can Live It Out. I read it. Really good stuff and easy. Deep, but easily relatable. And we've got some other links to some of Brant's pages there as well. We talked a little bit in this conversation about sex and sexuality and intimacy and why that has to be more than just getting something for myself. Well, my book, released just some recent weeks ago, Sexpectations, Reframing Your Good and Not So Good Stories About God, Love, and Relationships. It's to help anyone, man, woman, married or not married, young or old, deal with your sexual story. you have a sexual story. There's stuff you've experienced or learned or not learned, want, don't want. I mean, it's not a simple movement in your heart, the whole sexuality and intimacy thing. Well, I talk about that in Sexpectations, and especially what does it look like to bring Jesus into your story. So we've got the link to Sexpectations under this video as well, and I would love you to check that out. I do love to hear from you, whether it's in a comment under this video or using the contact page on our website. Just know I pay attention and respond every time I can be helpful. So that would mean a lot. And then please subscribe. Make sure you are subscribed to our channel so you can get these videos every time we put a new one up, usually every week. And until next time, God bless you.